Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another review from Izzy Cinematic Escape on YouTube. Today's review is based off the 2021 action and martial arts film Mortal Kombat, based off the very popular video game series. Now, let's go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty details of this review. You might be wondering, or those who are confused about the popularity of Mortal Kombat, why was it such a huge deal? Well, for a kid like me who was growing up in Germany, who grew up playing the likes of Street Fighter and eventually Mortal Kombat was that game that pretty much personified anything and everything that a lot of us kids were into in those days. A lot of action, a lot of martial arts, blood, violence, you name it. Now, before Mortal Kombat, there was another game that people might be familiar with that is initially, I guess you could more or less call it a platform to Mortal Kombat that used live actors in a way that personified the arcade fighting game. That game was called Pit Fighter, and I can remember playing that game when we lived in Texas, and that was one of my many go-to games in the arcade section. Mortal Kombat pretty much was the anti-Street Fighter, where Street Fighter was more of a cartoony, comic booky, managing to incorporate a lot of fantastical elements within that franchise. Mortal Kombat took live action actors, and managed to incorporate that into a video game while introducing more of a simplistic type of fighting style with the kicks and the uppercuts, and of course introducing the fatality system along with the blood that went with it. You had Kano, who was ripping people's hearts out, Raiden, who was shocking people to dust. You have Scorpion, who was burning people to ash. You had Sonya, who was giving them the kiss of death. Sub-Zero, who was ripping their heads off. Then you have Johnny Cage, who was uppercutting their heads off. And then, of course, still to this very day, even with the first Mortal Kombat, I have no idea what Liu Kang's fatality was supposed to be. Anyone who was familiar with that game or actually has a name for it, please give me a name, because I still have no idea what the purpose was for his specific fatality. And of course, given the popularity of the first Mortal Kombat, you had to have a sequel, which was Mortal Kombat 2, which expanded the world of the mythology, and it introduced new characters, a lot of Easter eggs and hidden characters. It was pretty much one of the greatest fighting arcade games of all time. It includes the cheapest final boss of all time, is Shao Kahn. Cheaper than Bison from Street Fighter 2. But that's another story. Mortal Kombat, it obviously eventually became so popular that it had to have a film that was released in 1995. And the 1995 cinematic version is by far one of the guiltiest pleasures of all time. It didn't necessarily have the brutality and the blood that became quite synonymous with Mortal Kombat, but it still ended up being a pretty decent film that was directed by Paul Anderson, and it's still one of my favorite video game adaptations, even though prior to that, at that point in time, it wasn't anything to measure up to. It wasn't as if Street Fighter was any good, and of course you had after Mortal Kombat, you had before even those respective films, you had Super Mario Brothers, which was, I guess, a guilty pleasure, a weird, quirky guilty pleasure, but that's another story in and of itself. Today's review is based off the new Mortal Kombat that was released today, and I have to say, at first I was kind of hesitant about this specific film, because I must admit, when I first watched the trailer, I wasn't particularly sold on the costumes of Scorpion and Sub-Zero, and even the look on Raiden, and because when I think about Scorpion, I really love the whole undead ninja feel that he had personified, and of course with Sub-Zero and Raiden, to me, their costumes didn't look all that fantastical, then looked more like a bad cosplay to me. So when I watched this film, I must say that I was very surprised. And I heard one of the complaints about this film was that the plot was ridiculous. The plot was trash. Well, let's be honest here. Does anybody watch a Mortal Kombat film for any deep philosophical plot points? You're watching the film for a lot of amazing choreographed fight sequences. You're watching it for the blood. You're watching it for the violence. You're not watching anything other than that. And I have to say that this film actually delivers it in complete and utter spades. And even though the plot is virtually non-existent, which is completely understandable when it comes to Mortal Kombat, what I did enjoy about the film is that it didn't feel the need to give everything that you wanted in spades right then and there. It still managed to incorporate enough Easter eggs within the confines of the film to literally make you want more. And there is some Easter eggs within the confines of the film. I have to say, you hear it. There's a little bit of spoilers here and there, but you see a little bit hint here for Baraka. Do you have a little hint here for Shao Kahn? Then of course there's a hint for Reptile. So it's obviously building the world up for eventually, if this film does well enough at the box office to manage a sequel, then by all means, I'm definitely looking forward to it. But one of the highlights of the film actually is Josh Lawson as Kano. Kano, to me, this Mortal Kombat film was essentially the Kano show. He has the best lines. He is absolutely one of the best characters in this film. And given everything that we know about the character of Thanos, now, I will say, I haven't played the later Mortal Kombat games. I mean, my knowledge of the Mortal Kombat franchise is more or less the first three Mortal Kombat, because those were the games that I grew up playing. And with Kano in this particular instance, I loved what they did with him in this film, and he was absolutely marvelous. He was humorous, he was charismatic, he was charming, and he just personified everything that I envisioned within that respective character. And needless to say, I sincerely hope and pray, fingers crossed, that we see more of him, because he was everything that I ever wanted to be in this particular video game character he brought to life. And given that we only see a brief moment, we only see him briefly in the 1995 film, it's not enough for us to really get a feel for him. This one in particular, you get a feel for him, and he just does an amazing job. Josh Lawson, 2 thumbs up for that performance. When it comes to the characters of Liu Kang, Kung Lao, and Raiden, and Cole, the made-up character they decided to put into this film, I didn't really necessarily feel neither here nor there about them. I will say that Liu Kang looked exactly like how I envisioned him from the video game for obvious reasons, and there's really not enough of him to us to really get a feel for him either. So I believe they're saving that aspect for the sequel. Kung Lao was awesome. I mean, Kung Lao was one of the coolest parts of the film, and Melina was very cool as well. Sonya was very unique and cool as well. But Jax, I was never really particularly a fan of the character of Jax, so I could have done without him in this film. And once again, I made my reservations known regarding the whole Scorpion and Sub-Zero look. I thought that they were cool, and when it comes to the overall look of Scorpion, again, my preference would have been him looking like he did in Mortal Kombat 1 and Mortal Kombat 2. I mean, the cool ninja outfit, the white dead-eyed, since he is from the netherworlds of hell, and he is one of the most brutal and stealthiest ninjas in the Mortal Kombat franchise. But I can more or less live with the look that they have now. So it's gonna take some getting used to for me, to be quite honest with you. I thought Sub-Zero was really cool. I loved how they managed to make his abilities come to life. Goro was another cool addition to see. But other than that, when it comes to the overall film of Mortal Kombat, the fight sequences were absolutely amazing. The special effects, I think, given everything that was going on and with the production of this film, I imagine that there was a lot of rushed sequences, and maybe the special effects wasn't what it needed to be. And they just, given the fact that they had to rush it, and with everything that was going on, most likely they weren't able to really bring it to life in the way that they have had it originally envisioned within their heads. So, but other than that, it's not a bad film. I actually enjoyed Mortal Kombat. There is a very cool Easter egg / sequel builder with it towards the end of the film, and I will say there's nothing at the end of the credits, so you don't have to wait for it. You don't have to wait for anything, so simply just keep that in mind. Don't wait for anything after the credits. There's nothing there. But overall, I have to say Mortal Kombat 2021 has a lot of great fight sequences, a lot of blood, a lot of gore. Again, Kano, Josh Lawson being one of the highlights of the film with his portrayal as Kano. But overall, I have to say I thought it was really, really good. Very good. Very exciting, exhilarating, great fight sequences. The score that's associated with the film did a pretty good job as well. Hoping that we actually see... Again, I don't want to spoil this particular instance, but there is one major disappointment that I had with this film, and it's gonna make me drop it down a notch with the score, simply because I was fully expecting it to happen during sometime during the duration of the film within a major fight. So I have to say it disappointed me in that aspect. But other than that, I have to say Mortal Kombat did a magnificent job. I thought it was fun. I thought it was exciting, very adventurous. Did an amazing job as far as building that world is concerned. Other than that, I'm going to have to give Mortal Kombat 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 most likely. I'd have to watch it again in order to fully, I guess, have it marinate within my mind. But other than that, I'm going to have to, once again, give it a 7 out of 10 most likely. I'm sure it'll go up, or maybe it won't, simply because that, like as I said, that major disappointment that they didn't include within this film. And you're probably already knowing what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to spoil that. As for the special messages that I wanted to go ahead and include within this review, Given everything that has gone on within the year 2019, 2020, of course, into 2021, one of the most important elements of the world is the small local businesses. And given that I live here in Sumter, South Carolina, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to anyone who might be interested in visiting Sumter or Columbia and they're looking for places to shop and places to dine. And one of my favorite places to shop at here is Music Gator, which is a phenomenal small business that has films, music, vinyl, and even some video games and comedy CDs. It has any type of music that you're looking for. The owner of that store is able to find it. So I'm always wanting to promote the small local businesses. So I hope you guys, if you do happen to visit, please feel free to visit that store. And one of my favorite restaurants here in Sumter is Yucatan Mexican Restaurant. And there's other small local restaurants here that are family owned, like Giorgio's, Sambino's, and Doggy Dog Express Hot Dogs, which is a great restaurant as well. Mariachis and Angels, and in the Columbia area, one of my favorite restaurants is called Zaz on Divine. Great Italian food. I highly recommend it. So anyone who happens to visit Sumter or the Columbia area, please, once again, feel free to visit the places I just recommended. But that is my review of Mortal Kombat, of course, with this special message. Mortal Kombat, I give it a 2 thumbs up, a 7 out of 10. Can't wait for the sequel. Should it be successful at the box office? And I hope you guys let me know in the comment section what you thought about it. Provide a like on my Facebook, and I will see you all again. Be sure to be on the lookout for my next review, and please feel free to spread the word to your friends and family about my channel and anyone who has been here since the beginning. Thank you, and take care, and peace out.